Probably should take that from you. Perfect. Hello. Okay.
Hi, this is Kathy.
All right.
Well, I'm confused because I was there and the room was totally dark.
Oh.
I was there at 6:30.
Wait. It's 6:30 right now, Catherine. Or do you mean 6?
No, I guess I did mean. Yeah, I'm sorry. I did.
No, you're okay.
I guess I'm here for the remainder.
Get it. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump in. Hello, everyone. Super excited to have everyone. I trust that you guys, well, you obviously made it here safe, but whenever it's time to leave, we'll need to make sure that we drive home safe too. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into attendance. Please say here or present whenever I call your name. Catherine Barrett.
Here.
See you. Aaron Black.
Here.
Catherine Bullard. See you.
Here.
I know Jonna is not going to make it tonight. Gary Dreith.
Here.
Tara Hildebrand. Lori Ward. Sarah Mayer.
Here.
Jordan Pryor here. Mike Scholl. Here. Jessica Schneider.
Here.
Loud and clear. Ron Stoddard.
Here.
Patty Swiger. Merlin Thompson is here. Psalm. Shane Vick. Is he not online? We'll come back to Shane. Natalie Walsh. Perfect. Okay. So Jonna Drake is absent, and then we'll keep an eye out for Shane because I know that he had some stuff that he wanted to share with us today. So I think he's still going to show. He might just be running late. Okay. So just to kind of go over the agenda real quick, today we're going to have kind of a very organic, thought-provoking session. We're going to let everyone do a little bit of sharing, kind of see what direction we want this to take us. There are going to be some people who are going to present some personal findings. I do know that, like, for example, Aaron Black did one of the implementation plan meetings with LPD. And so a lot of good stuff for us to just discuss. Especially since we've gotten so much information recently, it'll be nice to really just sit down and talk about it. So I will motion that we approve the minutes from last week or 2 weeks ago's meeting. Second? Okay. And nobody else has anything to say about it? Perfect. Okay.
Wait, real quick, Jordan.
Yes.
This is Commissioner Schneider. Did the city send out the recording from last week's meeting?
Hannah, you know?
I believe I forwarded the link to Chair Pryor and Jeffrey, I believe, on Tuesday.
We'll have to double check. I've gotten so many emails in the past 2 weeks that it might have just slipped through the cracks for us. Jeffrey?
Okay.
I don't recall seeing it either, and so I'm sorry if I missed that. I'll check right now, and if I have it, I'll distribute it right now. So apologies.
Thank you. I know that helps with minutes and whatnot when we're reviewing. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, Natalie? Mike? Your mic.
Sorry. I was looking for the video to check some of the statements in the minutes because I thought the officer was unequivocal about the consequences of misinformation in the reports. And I thought the report was a little massaged by someone. I wasn't sure if it went through legal or anything. Hopefully it did not. Did it?
No.
Okay. Okay. Because I clarified because he answered the question in the way, that I thought was the answer. And then he actually said it twice, that it was like immediate termination grounds. So I was looking for that. And then I was surprised that all this time, I thought that the city was putting it up on the web page like city council meetings are. But I think I'm mistaken apparently on that regard. No. The video.
Yeah, I think it was done by a commission member.
Well, once the city started doing it.
Oh.
So what's that? How does that work? Do you know?
City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hannah? If you want me to post it, it could be years. So I think let's ask Hannah how that's done.
My understanding, and I am searching for the email link for that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I'll definitely report it to you. Going through my emails now. My understanding is that we have to process it, download it from Zoom, process it through our server and that type of thing. And it goes to a YouTube page, I believe. And then we forward the link to Jeffrey and Chair Pryor, and they are the ones who send that link out to you.
It does not go for the public to watch. I guess that's my question was more about, I know Jessica had put in an awful lot of time because us being the trust commission, it was very important that we were transparent. And so we put in the effort while the city was trying to figure out what to do. Jessica filled the, brink, and she was putting it on YouTube and then posting it so the public could have access to it. And it was my understanding that the city had been working to perform that same function. So I think it's important that it not just go to us, but that it be, unless there's a reason why it can't be publicly available. I think the public might be interested to have access to it on the city webpage.
May I ask? Yeah.
After Jeffrey's comment, yes.
Just one quick thought is I guess I'm curious, could go on the notes. We could have it linked in the notes. So I think you're asking for something a little more public to put it on the calendars maybe, but it seems like a very easy thing that we could do immediately would be to have it linked into the meeting packets.
Yeah, or, if you've ever, I don't know if you've gone to the city webpage, but you go to the city webpage and you go like to city council and it says all the agendas and it has all the meetings. So you can just go right there. It's not buried.
Agreed. And so I'm saying if the city can do that, great, and they should do that. But I'm saying we could immediately start doing it into the notes, and it's sort of a belt and suspenders kind of thing.
Yeah, but let's see if maybe they can do it.
Sure.
City Manager. Ron.
So Hannah, on minutes, once they're approved and by the board, we send those out to city council, and then also those are posted to the page of that particular board or commission. I thought the videos were posted to that board or commission too, as well as part of that.
We can definitely do that. That's probably my misunderstanding, and I wasn't catching that step. So let me play
Okay.
a little bit of catch up, and I will definitely add the link to the
Okay.
agenda as well as the approved minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
is
you.
that what you're looking for? Sorry, I thought we were doing that, but okay.
Ron, did you have an add-in or?
Yeah, it was just a quick comment. I assume we were talking about posting approved minutes, not posting the minutes before we approve them.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, if I can, just to clarify that, to make sure we have a request of our city council for all 26 of our board and commissions. They want the posted minutes. They want minutes sent to them by email as soon as they are approved by the board. So we would not take the draft minutes here and post those to the council. But once those are approved, like tomorrow, then she will be sending those out to all of our council as approved minutes from the trust commission. And then that's in global relay, so it's out in the public at that time.
Okay. And then the last thing before we go into public comments, I know that we talked about it a little bit last week, but last meeting, but with the blue team there, we couldn't waste a ton of time. So I move that we change the end time of our meetings from 8 to 8:30.
Oh, second.
I was looking around, I was like, was that a bad idea? Okay, so we have a second. All right, so all those in favor of moving the time to 8:30, please raise your hand. It passes. And then all those opposed, if anyone opposes, please raise your hand. Don't think, yeah, okay, so it did pass unanimously. I wasn't quite sure. It's hard to see with that being like halfway down, it's hard to see Merlin. We can see you better if you tilt like that. That works. Okay, perfect. So then moving forward, meetings will end at 8:30. I mean, we've been doing that anyways, pretty much every time. So next is going to be public comment. So I will open it up to you two if you guys have public comments. Okay. And then whenever you're up there, just make sure you press the button and it lights up green.
Got it. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Bob Massaro. I didn't plan on coming down tonight, but some stuff came out in Facebook the past couple of days. I got a chance to look at it today, and it was pretty disturbing. If that information is accurate, and I think Moses could probably tell me if it is or not, and if it's not accurate, I will stop, okay? Might just go off. It indicates that one of the city council members and a city staffer are communicating with each other during city council meetings. I spot checked some of the information that was available. It's disturbing, to say the least, that I have a council member and a city staffer coordinating what's going to happen live during a city council meeting. All councilors should be having the same information on anything they're working on, and having one councilor having information none of the others have. As a matter of fact, directing some of the things that are happening. I think it's beyond the pale. And my heart goes out for Steve Adams. He just got caught in, if this is real, he just got caught in another controversy I'm sure he has no intention of being involved in. So I am very conscious of the fact that someone can get caught in something that they're clueless to what happened, okay? I believe that this is directly related to the Trust Commission. If you're talking about trust with the community, to find a city council member and a city staffer working behind the scenes during a meeting, if anything is going to hit trust, that's it. I'd highly recommend that this team puts together that as their next item of research on what's happening. I would expect at least one thing to come out of this. Besides, I don't know what discipline happens here, I really don't. But I would expect no electronic devices on the city council from here forward. Everything from cell phones to laptops to smartwatches. It all should be left on top of the council, because there's no other way to trust it. We had one member here really complain about a city council member being on her phone. This is beyond the pale, where you have a council member and a sitting city staffer communicating. I'll leave it with you there, okay? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Massaro. I think this is also, we received a written submittal too with a bunch, it looks like an email log or a
Text log.
some kind of text log. Were these, from looking at it, were they all during council meetings or?
No, as I said, I didn't have, normally I like to do a lot of research. That's kind of what my hobby is. I spot checked, and there's at least 3 series that I could spot check immediately that were during city council time. The date matches and the timestamp matches. And I'm sure the timestamp is accurate, that it's not, New York timestamp versus here. So you're going by the timestamp. It looks like it was accurate.
But then I'm just curious too, because I kind of have a different question about all that, but were there some also, were these discussions on text also off?
Yes.
Off council?
Yeah, it's off the ones I scanned, and I didn't go through them all, so I'll admit ignorance on that. But the ones I looked at were both during city council meetings and outside of city council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just for me to clarify as well, these are core records, correct?
As I understand it, there were core requests, and I got information. I don't know what happened here. I don't like to work on rumors here, but Moses' name came up in some of the people I talked to. And the indication was that some of this was sent up to Fort Collins so a third party could look at it, which I think is actually the right thing to do, right? That's absolutely the right thing to do, all right? And if that's true, fine. If it's not true, I'll stand corrected, okay? But that's what I heard through a rumor mill. And it's a rumor, so leave it as it is.
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. Normally I would stay, but with the snow, you guys have a good evening.
You too. Drive safely, please. Yes, Mike.
Could we, I would just like to see if, I would like to separate rumor, fact from rumor. So I'm looking to city attorney. I mean, because I hate trafficking in misinformation. Is there any clarity that you could bring to that is based in fact and not rumor?
Chairman Prior, Commissioner Scholl, I can confirm that the city attorney's office did file with the district court, asking them to review certain emails to determine whether they're considered public. As you can imagine, sometimes you know for sure something is a public record because they're discussing the public business. They're talking about an agenda item and what they want to do with it. Another time they're talking about how playful the dog is, and you know that's not public business. But sometimes there's a mixture of the two. So maybe they're asking about the dog during a public meeting. And you say, well, does that count or not? And so when we have some of those questions, we're asking the district court to help us answer them.
So if I know you love if I play armchair attorney because I'm so good at when I work for the city. But, so what you're saying essentially is you're not asking them for to make a judgment about wrongdoing. You're just making them a clarity about whether or not it's subject to open record, public or not. Is that correct, or am I?
That's
Am I
exactly right.
interpreting?
We don't ever believe there's wrongdoing occurring. It's really just whether they're a public record or whether it's.
Or not. And then if the court then determines that they're public record, then they'll be released as such. Is that correct? Or have they already been, am I?
No, that would be correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dry.
Yes, thank you. Partially correct. You're not telling the whole story. There was a CORA request put in and the city provided the requester the text and emails for this. They have since made the rounds. They're on public media. You can go through them, read them yourself. It shows date, time. Many of the times are during council meetings. You can go look at them. The requester received maybe half of them. There's another third that maybe the city said, no, these are no good. And the others, they said, well, we can't really tell, so we're going to send it up to the judicial, 8th judicial. But it is true. They are true. This is happening.
Commissioner Stoddard.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, what does this have to do with the Trust Commission? We are not empowered to, I'll finish in just a second. We're not empowered to investigate the scandal of the week. We do not have oversight over the city council. We don't have oversight over any department or any commission. We were set up to determine the level of trust of the community and look at ways that we could improve that trust through our 8 pillars of trust. If we get tied down into investigating every scandal and every rumor, and whether it's factual or not, our 8:30 is going to end up to be a 9:30 meeting. I would hope that we could use the extra time to do what we were commissioned to do.
And to your point, I do understand where you're coming from. And thank you for kind of giving us a perspective from the other side. I think it's more so, it was something that was brought up to us that I do think is worthy of discussion, at least, talking about it for a brief minute, because, at the end of the day, according to our ordinance, we start off with LPD, but we also look into other, forms of level of government, essentially. So I do think that it is important that we keep an open mind. I can't promise that we can do anything immediately, but I am thankful that you at least brought it to our attention. It's really just kind of out there. We'll go Gary and then Captain Barrett.
Yes, in my opinion, and many other citizens of Loveland, the Loveland Department or the Loveland Police Department, yes, definitely is a trust issue. But city council and their antics and the people on there are less trustworthy than the police department. The commission was set up for trust issues in the city. City council is a very hot point for trust issues. And I don't believe that this council is beholden to the city council. We don't work for them. We are independent, ad hoc. And if we want to investigate the trust of city council, I believe that we should be able to do that.
Catherine?
Thank you. And Chair Pryor, I don't believe your microphone is on, just so that you know. I went ahead and I looked at the survey results, the survey that was done recently. We had 234 respondents. Of them, 51.3% of them, more than half, cited the #1 issue as city council and elected officials. The major comments regarded council not serving citizens. The second one was dishonesty and corruption. There's a perception that there is dishonesty and corruption in council. And then right in line with that was also dysfunction. So 19% for both of those. And there were some other areas, but I think it's going to be important for this committee to look at what's going on with city council.
Thank you. Okay, so I think, best course of action right now, we are still in public comment. I do know that we also have an email comment, at least one. So let's continue where we're at with public comment. And then, again, we're going to have a lot of organic discussion today about kind of what we want to do moving forward. And so I think that'll probably be a better time for us to discuss this more if we want to. Hannah, do you have the email comment by chance?
I can print it out.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes, Mike Scholl.
time and can we, moving forward, and I don't want to put forth a motion, but I would prefer if we could just enter email comments in the record and approve them as part of the minutes instead of going through this process, because we waste a lot of time that we could be doing other things going over. I read the minute, I read the email, and I think probably most of us do. And I would prefer that we approve them as comments as part of the minutes, as part of the public record. But that's my opinion, and I'm offering that for discussion. If not, I'll.
For the sake of saving time for this meeting, we'll table that because I do believe that there's only one. We can read it real quick. And then next meeting where we spent the 5 minutes or so working out the difference in time, we can talk about protocol with that. Does that work? Okay. It's
Merlin has his hand up.
what was that, Catherine?
Merlin has his hand up.
So I'm so sorry, Merlin. It's hard to see you with the screen's only halfway up here, and it's like, yeah, on our side, and so it's like cutting off half of your face. But yes, Merlin.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment as well. We can't fix all of the city of Loveland, and the commission. We were appointed to do a trust thing. And to think that we're going to fix the city council, I thought all those people were voted and elected in. And so if they're not doing the job that people want them to do, they should unelect them. And I don't think that's our job. I mean, we need to build trust in the community. And, these people coming with their issues and problems and whatever, that's great. But I don't think we're the answer to all their problems. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Okay, so we have public comment pulled up, the email ones. So this one says, greetings, honorable commissioners, your faithful dissidents reporting. Your dedication to this community needs to be appreciated. Thank you. As you explore trust issues and remedies, you may recognize no mechanism exists to enforce accountability. A recent core request has exposed a distasteful relationship between your benefactor, Councilor Overcash, and Kelly Jones, senior city staff. Most of the request results were sent directly to the 8th District Court because the city was recently slapped for keeping public matters a secret. A judge will hear city arguments that these results are non-public, and the requester will argue that these core results are free public information. Some results are public now. I'm afraid you'll need to read them. As trust commissioners, you're tasked with making recommendations to city councilors such as they are. Allow me to contribute a recommendation. Don Overcash must resign now. I've included a powerful finding here. Overcash is explaining to senior staff that a private lobbyist, Loveland Business Partnership, is hosting a dark council meeting with the city manager. This corrupted triad is colluding to subvert recent ballot initiative 2A. The voters killed it November of 2020. Now you know you are not immune, and you must act on the truth at hand. You must apprise yourself of the core results and kill dark government in Loveland. See you soon, Bill Jensen. And then you had one as well. Yeah, and we had a second one. Please see the attached poll taken over a few short days actively. It was put on their 2 separate social media pages. The pollees are from different political backgrounds: Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. Citizen feedback was asked for, so I thought that you could, that this could be used for you all to help better understand the issues at hand. The poll is no longer active, but these are the results. I hope all of council will look at this. Okay. And then I believe that that's all that we have for email comments. We don't have anything else in here. Do we have any phone-in comments?
Thank you, Chair Pryor. Users, if you'd like to speak to public comment, please press *9 on your phone or choose the raise your hand feature. I don't see anyone, Chair Pryor.
Okay, well, with that, then let's just go ahead and start going over our review stuff. And so we have a couple of different folks who want to talk about some personal findings. So I'll just go with the order that I have on here. I've also added Commissioner Walsh to that group as well. So we'll start off with, what was that? So we'll start off, we have 2 hands raised, Catherine Bullard and then Jessica Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. I would so agree with the email. Our job is about trust in the community, and apparently it's not what I said, it's what citizens said, that their primary problem with trust is with the city council. And yeah, we don't need to go into personal stuff, but I think that's got to be a priority. If it isn't, we have failed.
Thank you. Commissioner Schneider.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to put in a couple notes, or a motion, or not a motion, just a comment that there was a response to all by another commissioner in response to the poll email, which was intended for public comment, and the commissioner responded in a derogatory way, and I thought without very much decorum. And frankly, you know, if we're restoring trust in our community, putting public comment down amongst the rest of the commissioners is not helpful, in my opinion. So I just want to put that forward, and I guess request in the future that when we do get emails from the public, that we respond respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. And real quick, Merlin, right before I let you go, I was supposed to make mention of this early in the meeting that we're not utilizing the chat feature right now. Hannah gave us a note about that, just so everybody knows, and it's not, you know, that way it's out in the open for everyone. So yes, please raise your hand. Now, Merlin, what do you have for us?
Yeah, that was me as a commissioner that responded to that poll. And the reason I did it is because I don't know that our job is to run around and look at polls that people create on Facebook. And I don't think that's what our job is. And so that's why I responded the way I did. And we have one gentleman that keeps bringing us information. And, you know, it's very one-sided. It's his opinion, and I'm just sick of hearing one person's opinion on what's going on in the town. This is a town of 70,000 people, And if there's a lot of people out there with that opinion, that's great. But we keep hearing one person's opinion. And that's why I responded to the poll the way I did. I don't think it was done professionally. I think it was done very poorly. And that's my opinion.
Thank you for that.
Chair Pryor?
Yes, Commissioner Dreith, excuse me.
I think that it was wrong to do that. We want to lose trust in the committee. We start slamming our public comment. Public comment is made to get our attention, have us deal with the issues that the public has. And the second thing is, this comment made was done very wrong. It violated Colorado open records law. It went reply all. That shouldn't happen. Chair Pryor would ask that maybe you ask the city attorney to verify and run over the requirements of the open meeting law and that, because council is getting into that same issue. And we need to be better than city council, and we need to abide by the laws.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that we need clarification from the city attorney because we all know moving forward, everyone here and on Zoom, just don't hit reply all. And we're just going to leave it at that. So we're going to transition over to, I know that Commissioner Black has some stuff to share with us, and we'll go in order with the people who have some personal findings to share with the rest of the group.
Thank you. So myself and Commissioner Hillebrand Shell and Commissioner Swiger all attended the LPD's working group for community engagement, where Lieutenant Murphy is the chair of that committee. And that was actually really refreshing for me. There were members of law enforcement, other staff members from HR in the city, and volunteer senior professionals there. And not everyone was, some of them were there voluntarily just because this really means a lot to them. And that passion really came through just in speaking with them and hearing their comments. So that was really refreshing. Lieutenant Murphy broke that entire group up into 4 different committees. And what they were working on is the Jensen Hughes recommendations. And the 5 assessment groups that LPD set up are exactly the 5 recommendation groups that Jensen and Hughes reports use. So that was operational practices, supervision, leadership, and professionalism. The third one is processes and protocols for complaints against LPD personnel, community engagement, which is the working group we attended. And then lastly, the Citizen Advice and Oversight Committee. I haven't seen when the rest of those committees will be meeting. I haven't seen a date or time. Have you? Okay. But I thought the way they kind of portioned us all out was great. He gave everybody the task, each group, to review the Jensen and Hughes assessment report and recommendation for their assignment area. Then to review current LPD policy and or current practices, or note the absence of them in your assignment area. Evaluate the policies and procedures, and determine if that's meeting the community's needs or if improvement is required. He really did push, Lieutenant Murphy, that if improvements required, to look at other programs, training, other agencies, best practices, policies, reach out to other resources. He even said if somebody needed to travel, let him know. So I thought that was great. And then provide written recommendations based upon that research. And if positions are recommended, those would need justification for positions with metrics and job descriptions. And so the next meeting is, I think, March 3rd for the entire group. each subset committee were to get together in the interim at least one time. Our group was having a really hard time getting together. In fact, I never saw the officer that's chair of that subcommittee get back at all. So I'm hoping he shows up to that meeting because we went ahead and scheduled it. But I did think everybody that was at the table really had a passion for serving on that specific committee and getting community engagement going. One of the major things with the group that I'm sitting on is the recommendation that talks about actually having a communication written plan to be able to communicate with the community, because we don't have one of those. And so that's more of a longer term instead of a shorter term goal. But so far, so good on that. And I would encourage our commission members to reach out and try to serve on one of these. I obviously can't serve on all 5. Community engagement's my wheelhouse, so I felt like I would be better served in that capacity. Operational practices, leadership, supervision, that's just not my wheelhouse, but I would encourage all of us to try to jump in if we can and serve on those. So that was the scoop.
Just real quick, for those of you guys who may not know or may not realize, we forwarded the old email from Tyser that had all of the contact information for each of the 5 groups. So basically what I was told was the best way to figure out the day, time, and location is to reach out to them directly, and they should let you know. So just wanted to let everybody know that. And then Tara, did you have something to add on to that?
Kind of reiterate, like I was really encouraged too to see the officers really excited about changing up some of the practices in the. Am I not? I'm so sorry. I do that every time. It's green, but I always look at everybody and not into the microphone. Is that better? Okay, I do it every time. So no, I was just really encouraged and by the officers' attitudes. And I was going to say something very specific. Oh, it was also very interesting to what you were saying. I think we really do need community members to show up. I think they are willing to let us show up and have our voices, but if we don't, there's going to be that lack of community voices on these committees, and it'll really hurt our community if the citizens don't have a voice too. So I really want as many people to participate as possible. And that was a big thing with the Jensen and Hughes. The handout they gave us was a little different than the one I had received. It was much more specific about the changes that Jensen and Hughes felt like needed to be addressed. And so it made me feel better about the whole thing, which is their big thing, is communication. And so that's why I do think it's important for us to communicate very clearly and very respectfully, because that is one of the biggest things in building trust. So, and that was Jensen and Hughes' recommendation too. So that's it.
Next, thank you. Commissioner Barrett, your hand is up.
All right, thank you. I just want to, 2 things, agree 100% with Commissioner Hildebrand. If we cannot be respectful of the people who have the courage and commitment to come and talk to us, we need to be quiet, period. Secondly, I wanted to encourage everybody to reach out to these officers who are in charge of these groups. I reached out just today to Lieutenant Bob Schaefer regarding the Citizen Advice and Oversight Committee. And he responded immediately, and I'll be attending the Police Citizens Advisory Board next week, or in 2 weeks. So I'll be a little bit late to this meeting, but just wanted to let you know they are ready, willing, and able to accept our participation and help.
Perfect, thank you. All right. Next on our list of people to share is going to be Commissioner Dreith.
Commissioner Black was in front of me, but. Oh, okay, all right.
You're okay.
Something that came about, I guess it was last week or since our last meeting, that shocked me terribly. On February 12th, there was an incident with the Loveland Police Department again. There was a gentleman who was suffering some PSD episodes, and it was really treated roughly, wrongly. His house, they flashbanged his house, destroyed the house. I mean, there was an open letter from the family, which I wanted to read tonight, but it's since been taken down on advice of their lawyers. And I just want to say that the whole gist of it was how badly they were treated. They brought the mother and the daughter outside in the cold, improper clothing. They threw flashbangs into the house, destroyed the house, made it unlivable. These people now have to go to a hotel, which they can ill afford. Along with this, I understand the Reporter Herald had an article about this episode. I don't have access to that, so I can't speak to that. But the Loveland Police Department put out a press release on what they were talking about in their release was how great it was, and they did a successful job. And I don't feel that the two of them jive. And it's disheartening to me that after Karen Gardner incident, all the studies, the Jensen Hughes, and the slowness we're working on corrective actions, we have another incident. We have more and more incidents. It's just setting precedents. And I wouldn't be surprised if the next lawsuit and the following lawsuits will be of higher monetary value the city will pay out. I just think that we're working hard on the Loveland Police Department to no end. They haven't learned anything yet. So it was very disturbing to see that and have that happen. So I did have a couple other things, but I think we've covered those already.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was that all of it?
Fine. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Of course. Commissioner Black, did you have a follow-up?
I actually do. I appreciate that. I saw that letter, that open letter as well. And I saw the Reporter Herald article, and I saw the press release that LPD sent out, which was very different. And I don't know who to believe. My husband and I had a long conversation about this incident. I know LPD said that at one point they did leave the home, had to come back because the gentleman was walking the sidewalks with an assault rifle. So at this stage, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. And if you just read the open letter from the family, it does sound gravely horrible. If you read the report from LPD, it sounds like if there's a man on my block with an assault rifle who's disturbed, I need the police. At the very minimum, EMS and our co-responder program there. But with an assault rifle, pretty much everything goes out the window at that point. And I've dealt with a lot of incidences with people with mental health and drug addiction issues and law enforcement in this town. And I'll tell you, if there's an assault rifle involved, everything goes out the window except for community safety. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but there is definitely two sides to the story here. And I would like to know too, but they did put out, LPD put out that they had left, and 2 hours later they were called back because the gentleman was out walking the streets with an assault rifle and very disturbed. So I just want to put that.
So I think I know about this case as well, because you actually had mentioned it to me before, and that's why you had asked to present. I think that this is going to be a really good opportunity for us to, kind of keep a close eye on what their actions are. And, we know what process they're supposed to be putting in place now with the blue team and everything else. And so Well, I hate to give it a silver lining because I know that the husband was very disturbed after the incident. Regardless of who was in the right or who wasn't, I do know that the family is very disturbed by the events. I think that this is a perfect opportunity for us to really see if LPD is putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and see if they really are going according to their protocols. And I think that this will be the perfect case to really, as it's happening in real time, see if they're doing the things that they told us that they're going to do. So that's my thoughts on that. Commissioner Schneider and then Commissioner Barrett.
Yeah, I wonder, and please forgive me if I'm asking dumb questions. It's my specialty. Are we going to be able to see? I'm familiar with that incident story as well. I'm not familiar with it personally. Will we be able to access body cam footage from the incident?
I will turn that over to either the city manager or the city attorney.
Until it's over.
I believe that you can access that if there is an internal affairs investigation that's commenced on that. So you'd have to see where it ends up. But once there's an internal affairs investigation, you would have access under the new laws.
Perfect. Thank
Now,
you.
the question would be whether this body needs to see that, or if Commissioner Schneider wants to see it herself, she can just make a Cora request and ask for the video.
Right. Thank you.
Good to know. Just another clarifying question. Is there internal affairs investigation started or no?
I would assume with how recent the incident was, because I believe it happened over the weekend, or maybe last Saturday, but whichever it is, I doubt that they've opened an investigation yet. You're more than welcome to tell me if I'm wrong, but I would assume this early on, they probably haven't.
Chairman Pryor, I don't know. I think you're right. It is early on. You've seen the chart that they have to go through to kind of figure out what the process is. All the different levels of review still have to happen or may be happening right now.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Barrett.
Thanks. Just really quickly, do we know if Summit Stone was called in to this incident? And if not, can we find out?
They don't work at night.
Oh, Commissioner Vick said that they don't work at night.
It started at 9:45 at night. 7-hour standoff between LPD, LCSO, and this gentleman. I'm not saying this gentleman did not have an issue, a post-traumatic stress disorder going on, but he pointed a loaded laser weapon at multiple people for 7 hours. I can promise you in the 28 years that I have been involved with, I've been involved with Loveland SWAT since 2008. 10 years ago, this guy probably would have been taken out by a sniper. The LCSO and Loveland PD showed extreme caution with this guy and held with him for 7 hours. When he was taken into custody, our paramedics were right there to evaluate him to make sure he was not harmed, and the justice system went forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Vick.
Montgomery County SWAT.
Commissioner Schneider.
Yeah, Commissioner Vick, were you, well, two things. One, I mean, that I appreciate your perspective. Were you there at the incident? Are you an acting EMT at this time? Like, what is your?
I was in charge of the Tim's medics that night. Listened to that whole thing happen, coordinated with Lieutenant Harkin and several other people on scene to make sure that medical and all the other stuff that happens outside of that SWAT happens. So
I
they
missed the first part of what you said. Sorry.
I coordinated with Lieutenant Harkin, who's LCSO commander that was in charge of that scene that night. Officer Grasshorn, who was also there, and all of our Tim's medics, plus the fire department was also there. We have what we call a TAC fire team. We were all there. We had a rescue plan. We had everything in place to make sure that that guy got all the help he wanted. There are certain procedures that obviously I can't talk about, that Loveland PD and the LCSO probably can't talk about until all the stuff comes out. I'm just saying, as a commissioner, I understand the letters. I understand social justice. I'm just telling you from my perspective, since 2008, that team, both those teams held extreme levels of confidence, caution, and dealing with that gentleman, because there was a day prior to, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years ago, he would have been eliminated. And they didn't. Both those teams, in my opinion, takes extreme amount of caution and fortitude to stand out there in the cold for 7 hours and attempt over and over and over and over to negotiate with a guy to come out of his house. Until you live in that world, you got to understand that some of the tactics may seem awful. They may seem like, oh my gosh, but they are actually pretty civil compared to what could have happened. Obviously, that's my opinion, but I would hate to see this commission go down a rabbit trail on a 7-hour SWAT standby that turned out actually pretty good.
Okay. And Commissioner Vick, I understand this is like connected to you, so I'm not putting down your experience or any of that. But just to clarify, you were on the scene and or professionally coordinating with officers at the scene?
Yes, I have my cell phone and I had my TAC radio with me the entire time.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And then my other big question is that if Summit Stone isn't available after 9:45 p.m., is that really a solution for mental health in our community?
Can I make a few comments on that? And I'll have, I guess, I'll just
go for it.
Summit Stone is awesome in what they do. They do some incredible things for our mental health. Their co-responder program is awesome. We work with them as Thompson Valley. Obviously the police department's hired them. They've obviously made such an impact. We're gonna have more in the city of Loveland available. But I just this is something that's been boiling even within my own communities. If you were to be a mentally health person in a crisis and you go to their headquarters over on Wilson Avenue, not their headquarters, but that particular place, and you produce a weapon, every single one of those co-responders are going to lock their doors, hide from the people, and call people with weapons. Now, I say that because of this. I think this co-responder program is phenomenal. It does some great things. What it's not going to do is they're not going to put a Summit Stone person in direct fire with somebody with a loaded weapon, a knife, even if there's any sort of threat. They're going to protect their people. Just like there's only 6 of us that are TAC medics that have all the gear on, and we're inside the armored vehicle. So there's certain things that Summit Stone and the co-responder program are incredible at. But one thing that they are not going to do is put their own employees in jeopardy, in danger by someone who's having a huge crisis. Now, that offers a lot of questions, I know. Like, how do you de-escalate? Who do we train to de-escalate? We train paramedics in de-escalation. We train police officers in de-escalation. We are all trying to work together to come to a point where if we have another veteran that's in a post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever is going on, pointing a loaded weapon at people, how do you de-escalate that without other people with weapons there? Now, it is interesting because they have trained negotiators. Larimer County SWAT does, LPD SWAT does. These guys and gals that do these negotiations are top line professional, well-trained people that held that guy for 7 hours. In other cases, I've been doing this since 2008 on the SWAT team. Those negotiators for both those teams in this county are top-notch, incredible people. My guess is they're not going to insert a Summit Stone person into that negotiation unless asked for by the negotiators, because they spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours training, exercises, and all that to get these people out. So the Summit Stone stuff is awesome. The co-responder people are awesome. But when you hit a certain level of crisis mode, Summit Stone is going to back up and let officers, paramedics, and all that come into play.
Yes, Commissioner Schneider.
Thank you, Commissioner Vick. Do you mind just clarifying for me like what your professional title is, just so I understand your personal perspective?
I am a captain on B shift, Thompson Valley EMS.
Thank you. And
since 1995.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your service. I hear what you're saying. This is not my wheelhouse. I still do, I guess I should just say I have concerns about the fact that we are hearing a lot that the Loveland Police Department is partnering with Summit Stone for mental health de-escalation, and it sounds like that is not really the case. And that's no shame on your work or you know, any of that. I want it to be clear, like, what is that partnership? What does it really mean? When is it not available? When is it available?
Right now, it's 7 days a week. Or is it 7? Let me clarify that. I know it's Monday through Friday, MH1, MH6, and MH7. Plus LCSO has co-responders. So all between, I want to say 8 to 5, just off a general thing, we have access to a co-responder. The PD does, right? Okay. When the paramedics show up, we rarely call for them, but we've worked with them before because we're all trained in mental health. That's when the cops get there and they're like, what do we do with this person? They call us. And we show up our kid gloves and we do everything we can. There's just some situations that a co-responder, a paramedic are not going to de-escalate, unfortunately. They're just to that level. We've seen a few of those cases, unfortunately, play out in the news, right? So the co-responder and the LPD's relationship, I think, is phenomenal. It works well. It works well for probably, and here's why it works well, because you don't hear about all this in the news. You're not hearing all this. If you guys could understand the amount of welfare checks and mental health calls we go to in a year, it's especially since COVID and how much that has ramped up. These people are dealt with daily, on a daily basis. I can with confidence say daily basis, we come in contact, LCSO or a LPD co-responder probably comes in contact daily with a mental health case that gets resolved, taken care of, and they get to the resources that they need that you will never hear about because the system worked. The system works well.
Thank you. And just because we're starting to just get a little bit off track, I am going to get us back on track. And again, thank you, Commissioner Vick, for sharing your perspective with us. I know with you, I don't want to say the inside man because that sounds kind of sketchy, but you get where I'm coming from. You know, it's nice to have somebody who's working, you know, close enough to the action as it's happening to where we can get that perspective. And again, I think that this is just something that in the next days, weeks, months, we just keep an eye on it. And, you know, as long as things go according to the protocol that we've been told that it's supposed to go through, I think that we should, in theory, get our answer. So with that, actually, Commissioner Vick, wait, who has it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Tara, yes.
Quick, but I think it's the Jensen and Hughes report and it goes directly to this. But under communication and transparency, again, man, I am like, I don't know what's wrong. Okay, this one, can you hear me now?
Give her 3 mics, it'll work.
Okay, I know. So it just says law enforcement agencies should consider the community impact following major events, changes in crime patterns, or the introduction of new policing strategies. These agencies should create opportunities to engage the community proactively in dialogue to gain input, co-development strategies, and address community concerns. Interviewees frequently mentioned a desire to be directly engaged following critical incidents, such as matters involving the use of force, and to discuss policing strategies impacting quality of life issues. Proactive and direct communication was one of the most often mentioned areas to improve trust in the police department and its leadership. And I just think like this is an opportunity, hopefully the city's hearing me, to proactively talk to the community because I hadn't heard of this incident. I was out of town, but hearing Mr. Vick's perspective and Mr. Dryce's perspective, like just that discussion gave me such a better rounded version of what might have happened. And it really helps understand the situation. When you only hear the community's version, it's scary and doesn't build trust. But when you hear the whole story and all the different perspectives, like right now, maybe that's what our community needs to hear. Like get Shane's story out there too, along, you know, and I know like they talk about the legalities of these incidents, but I just feel like That's exactly what Jensen and Hughes was trying to create and what we should try to build.
Thank you. So you're kind of suggesting, which we won't vote on any recommendations now. I've realized that Patrick and Jeffrey have kept like a running total of like potential recommendations for us, which is great. But basically, you're kind of advocating for better communication to the community when these big events happen. So then that way it's not a shock value thing. Like whenever we're talking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, this happened over the weekend. How did I miss this? Versus, really actively trying to get that word out there. So then people understand, okay, this is what happened in our community. Like at least we know about it now. Let's see in the coming days, weeks, months, whatever, how this plays out kind of thing. Yes, Commissioner Stoddard.
I'll make this real brief, but I think this.
What is sharing?
Thank you, Aaron. It's a classic example of how you build trust by getting the facts out there. I am so happy that Commissioner Vick was here to give us that perspective of what happened. If all we had was the letter that Commissioner Drythe had and the report that he had about what the family said and the home was destroyed and how terrible things were, we were ready to, just pounce on the police department for another Karen Garner case. But I think that when it comes to our responsibility to build trust, I think the recommendations and the comments made by Tara, Commissioner Hildebrand Schell, I'm sorry, are so important because trust is built by getting the facts out there. I'm glad to hear that the police department put out a press release on it. And maybe that press release should have gone in. Maybe Commissioner Vick should have written that press release because that's the sort of thing that helps us understand what's really happening. That builds trust.
Right. And it may not always be what someone wants to hear, but I agree, definitely. But so I do want to transition us back on track to kind of reviewing our materials, and we're going to have some words as well from Commissioner Vick. He had something ready for us as well. So whenever you're ready.
I'm assuming that was the email that I sent to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm all like flustered now. One of the things that come out of last meeting that I was really concerned about, that I think we as a commission, when we're talking about trust is all that, is that there was a interaction, and I understand that over till September, there's going to be some pretty potentially heated interactions in between this commission. I get that. That's how we solve things, right? You got to get out of your comfort box a little bit sometimes, as long as we're respectful to each other. One of the things that I sent to the chair that really concerned me was a comment that was made that a motion was set that we just need to vote on it without discussion. In any committee and anything that I've ever sat on, you can raise a motion, you can have a second motion, and there should be a healthy discussion on each motion, which the chair is in charge of and the assistant chair, right? Where they go, hey, is there any discussion on this? If there's no discussion, then we vote. If there is discussion, then we should be able to hear both sides of that discussion. So everybody on the panel can get to a point where they understand the motion and what they're voting on, right? Instead of just making. So that was the biggest, I have my email up here just to make sure. That was probably the biggest thing as a commissioner sitting on a committee that I went, wait a minute, we got to have discussions. That, right, that's got to be part of our thing. So that was probably the biggest thing that really struck me on that, was that we if we don't have discussions and we just because we push a motion through and we vote on it, a good motion may get voted down or a bad motion may get voted through if we don't have a healthy discussion. So that was my number one personal item on that, especially when it starts coming to obviously the city council discussions, what the community trust is. This is huge, right? I was born and raised here, right? In a little house on East 8th Street, right behind the sugar factory when it was still a sugar factory, right? I mean, I love this place. We got to take our time and make sure that we're doing things correctly commenting, not commenting. I think all those comments, right? I don't want to stifle anybody's comments, which is the part of the discussion. Agree with it or not agree with it. I think we're all adults here and we can definitely move forward. That was my biggest thing on that. My other one was just about the time thing, which we solved that. And that's all I have unless anybody else has any questions.
Does anybody have a discussion? Catherine Barrett, yes, ma'am.
Well, since that was, I believe you're referring to a comment that I made, and I'd like to roll the tape back and see how that really went down. My recollection was that there was a motion and a second. There was very healthy discussion on that motion. And then one commissioner kept coming back, reiterating the same point, at which I tried to basically call the question. So I'd like to get some clarification on how we do that without leaving the impression, for which I apologize. That was not my intention whatsoever, to leave the impression that I was quelching healthy discussion. I am all about that. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so I think a good solution, that I'm just going to go ahead and say that falls on me. If there ever is truly just a back and forth between, just 2 members, and it really does come down to you both are saying the same thing, you might just be saying it different. I think it needs to come down to either me or Jeffrey stepping in, reiterating what's going on, making sure that you're both on the same page, and then we would move to a vote. So I think that bit of miscommunication was probably on my end, and I apologize. Yes, Commissioner Mayer, and then Commissioner Scholl after.
So I think a lot of our issues too have come to the fact that we had a time limit and we were in a crunch and everyone feels that pressure. So hopefully now we can all take a deep breath and just say what we need to say clearly and move on.
Commissioner Scholl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm since we're kind of having a little bit more of a freewheeling discussion, I just kind of have a couple of things I wanted to maybe bring up, and at least they're my thoughts. One of the things that struck me that I really struggle with, and I think as it comes to trust, and I don't have a good solution, but I'm going to bring it up anyway for discussion, is Facebook sucks. Facebook is awful. It is a toxic place. I mean, even the discussion we had today was what I read on Facebook and what I saw when I was there. And I think, and you see how just divergent, and I'm not criticizing, because I know whether we like it or not, it's become a portal for information in our community. And I think, and I understand it, but I do think as a commission, how we use that tool is really important, because I think, because I do think we're a community of 80,000 people. Not everyone's on Facebook and not everybody uses Facebook. So you get a very select group of people. It's an easy, cheap form of getting a word out. And I think you tend to get back a lot of negative, a lot of chaff, I think, and I think it's hard to really have a good, robust, honest discussion on that platform. And I think as a commission, I would hope that we would be very judicious and very careful about what we put and what we use on that, both kind of individually as it relates to this commission and collectively, because I think we just don't, the quality, how you collect the information is as important as the information itself. And I think when we go out on Facebook, and I've had this discussion and I won't rehash it, that I think we have to be careful. And I think somebody said earlier, and I think Commissioner Hildebrand said something at a last meeting, is we have to be better. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we have to be impeccable in how we approach these questions and the discussions that we have both publicly and internally. And so I don't like Facebook. I mean, I think I've made that clear. I think it's a really awful, and you don't get good information. I wish, and I've suggested this before, that we use to kind of engage the Loveland, the Engage Loveland site. It's the Bang the Table platform that the city uses. Is it Loveland, Commissioner, or excuse me, City Manager, is it the Engage Loveland, I think, or am I the name of the site that you use, which I think is a really good site for getting good community engagement that's not the social media shouting that we get. So
City manager, do you have a follow-up for that?
Yes, if you hadn't have said bang the table, I would have told you the correct name.
Yeah.
But since we use this over in Water and Power all the time to get information out to our community, the idea was a separate platform, Connect Loveland. I don't remember the name of it right now, but that was a platform that we talked about a little bit earlier with you in discussions as to getting out the word a little bit differently. And we're still open to that discussion. So,
and just for the record too, bang the table is not, it's not a call, it's a vendor. It's that uses because in my professional, there's a lot of communities, and I think it's a very good public engagement platform that's not social media. Well, it's not Facebook or social media based. So I would think that maybe as part of our discussion, we think about how we use some of the resources that are available to get the word out, and not rely on Facebook posts, because I just really think it makes things more difficult. So thank you.
Of course. Commissioner Mayer and then Commissioner Black.
So I spoke with Councilmember Sampson, and she brought up that we could have a town hall and have like a separate small group discussion, and we would be able to bring in interpreters, things if we needed potentially, so that way we could engage with some of the other groups that aren't necessarily, people who aren't able to be here or comfortable being here. We could definitely be more specific. So I thought that might be something we should look into when we are looking for public comment.
Commissioner Black.
So on the city website, there's a page that is called Let's Talk, and there are specific projects highlighted on there. And I think it would be cool for our trust commission to be a highlighted project. And right there is where the public can make comments. And also on the city page is a LPD transparency page. And it asks, it says if you want updates on anything to do with the Karen Gardner case. And I also think that our updates, that's where there could be a link to our meetings on that as well. So there's a couple of pages that are already up and going on the city website that I think we could utilize, specifically the Let's Talk one. And as far as community engagement, I think we should still talk about a survey. And I really want to throw it out there. CSU's Center for Public Deliberation, Dr. Carcason is the founder and director of CPD, and I've worked with him on other roundtable discussions within Larimer County, and he brings his students to facilitate at each table. And I think that would be, in fact, I think Dr. Carcason facilitated our city council's retreat a couple of weeks ago. And I might be wrong on that, but I was going to throw that out there for community engagement, not necessarily deliberation, but dialogue. And that roundtable discussions with LPD and community members, and yes, language justice, to where everybody has the interpreter. You're either hearing in English or you're hearing in Spanish, because I would not want a separate event for Spanish speaking individuals. That should all be integrated into one. And so I'm throwing that out there, that we get in touch with CPD, and I could do that if we so chose to start building the relationship with LPD and the community. I think that would be a terrific way to do it with CPD.
I would like that we have more discussion on the Let's Talk so that we can make a request if we choose. What does everybody else think about this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, I actually think it does. I mean, I appreciate that, because I do agree. I think we do. I do think that it might benefit us. And I know we've had this discussion earlier, but I think maybe this is the time where we broach, like maybe having small group or subcommittee groups that can sit down and come up with format, something that we can, make a recommendation to the city that it be posted. So I would kind of offer that kind of as a way to kind of, because obviously we're not going to do it in the 2 hours we have in the available to us in the meeting time, but if there's, a couple people on the commission that wanted to volunteer to put together a presentation that can be posted, I would be very supportive. If the city manager and the city attorney are amenable to looking at something.
City manager.
So we have our PIO right now, who in a former life was a communications expert. And so if you either wanted to have her come and talk to you as a group, or if you want to splinter into a subcommittee and have her come and talk to you in the subcommittee, she'd be happy to do that, as we have said all along. So just to let you know and confirm that we're willing to get into that. The other thing I would say is that we have our library is trained in what's called the Harwood public engagement, community engagement process, and has been facilitating a lot of the different meetings that have been going on in our community, including all of our town halls so far. So if you were wanting to look at that as another way to do a town hall and need facilitators, they have been doing that and they're trained to do that too as well. So that resource, and then that's who Nicole Yost, our PIO, does, and she coordinated the last couple of outreaches that we've done. So another tool if you want to use that. And then Martine was not our facilitator because I would get in trouble. Chris Hutchinson was our facilitator. So I had to be careful. And at one time I had 3 of them there. So he was there. He made the presentation that he's done about global getting together and different groups and strategies. Yeah, so he was great, but he was not the facilitator all day, but we still enjoyed his class very much.
Commissioner Schneider.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Sorry, I have 2 devices going, so I don't miss anything. City Manager Adams, thank you for providing that. I personally think an opportunity to interview and speak with the PIO would be helpful, definitely. I also wonder when we're going to circle back to a conversation with you, and wondering if we can get that on the agenda potentially for the next meeting. I know there are a lot of things going on and a lot of priorities, so I'm not trying to push, but I do want to make sure that potentially we get to speak with both of you. I think that would be useful for our understanding of how things work.
Thank you. Okay, and yes, Commissioner Walsh has been waiting incredibly patiently, so I'm gonna let you go.
It's not in my nature. So I went to one of the, what are they called, the groups at the police? Yeah, so I was in the assessment group for supervision, leadership, and something with the P, I can't remember. It was really good. There were 5 officers of high ranking. Jeff Pyle led the meeting, and he should be like in charge of everything. He was so good at leading a meeting and keeping things going and allowing conversation. So it was 5 officers. The HR director was on Zoom. There were 4 members from the police advisory board and me. And it was some of the, there were some large topics, and the one conversation that was the most dynamic, because the opinions were so varied. And then the people from the police accountability board were more versed in police stuff than me, because I'm like still not sure if it's okay to call them cops or not, and I'm like, so I definitely was in charge of like the least knowledgeable questions. But we're having conversations. Do they have there's a use of force regulation? Is the de-escalation part of the use of force, or is it a separate standalone? And we had this long conversation about it. And there was a lot of real active listening going on. And I was blown away. It was a winter storm coming. No one was in a hurry. It was really great. I wanted to raise this. So we hold ourselves to a high standard. And I think, we're kind of like the proceduralists over here, and I don't agree with these guys on anything else. But you know, at our very first meeting, when we were over at the, whatever. Yeah. You know, Moses, you know, kind of read us the rules and stuff like that and talked about the appearance of impropriety. And I'm an attorney. That is the pillar of practicing law. It's the appearance of impropriety. It's not, oh, you caught me. What are the facts? It's if it looks stinky, it stinks. And so, I mean, that's the standard. And, you know, also, you know, attorneys walk around with our fiduciary duties. They don't stay at the office. It's a 24-hour obligation. That's how I lead my life. I'm very, you know, I see things that like really look bad, and I struggle with how people hold themselves out as professionals when they look, it looks stinky. I think some of the questions that came up with city council, that's a problem with it. And we can read through the ordinance and, you know, argue about, you know, what the meaning and intent of the ordinance is, what the language of the ordinance is. As I put in my memo for our last meeting, if the city council doesn't like what they wrote or what their people wrote for us, then all they have to do is amend it. And they haven't. So I'm thinking they're digging it. Because it's so simple. I thought that night they were going to pull the plug on us. We're sitting in the audience going, they're tearing into Jordan. It was like blindsided, and it was so inappropriate because it was just a status report. We weren't giving our big report. It was a status report. It's like, you know, we met, there's 16 of us, somehow we're talking to each other, you know, we've got some documents. So whenever they want to do that, they'll do that. They may do it right now. They may be texting each other right now saying, we got to can this commission. Well, that leads to my point. But, you know, one of the things we've all been frustrated by is the inability to, you know, we have this much time to get things done and we're trying to do it in order and we're not. And, you know, we don't even know each other enough to know how we talk, and like that I go on and on. And Tara always comes up with the great ideas at the end of the, like they're the ideas kind of a procedure. That's it. But you know, are there three of us? Are there two of us? I know how to go. We could all be in we could have a party and we could all be at a party, and all of us, I believe all of us would know how to not talk about commission business. And that would be okay. It's not like we can't exist on the same earth, but, you know, we're given we were given some very specific ground rules, you know, as Attorney Garcia and I went, you know, toe to toe, little lawyer to lawyer banter about whether we could serve on the
assessment groups.
And I was like, no, we're going as citizens. You know, it's not. And then to tell you the truth, I was a little miffed, or I think my feelings were hurt that Attorney Garcia admonished us to not go in groups to these assessment meetings, where I walk in and there are 4 members of the Police Accountability Board, and they were talking about the business of their board. So I'm thinking, we get one set of rules and then other people get other set of rules. And that is the very type of thing that undermines trust. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm saying it here. You guys you don't have to sit there stone face. I mean, you can reply unless you're not allowed to by the commissioners, the councilmen. But, you know, we're being really good and really patient and doing all this stuff. And then you see stuff like, you know, this text stuff that is problematic on so many levels. And so I'm just kind of trying to figure out when you're playing by the rules and the other people are cheating, the cheaters win. That's how it works. And the people that are playing by the rules waste their time. And we've all put in a lot of time. And I'm trying to figure out, I mean, every Tuesday morning, I'm like, I'm done. this is a waste of time. You know? And then like by Thursday, I'm like, well, I should, because I have a problem not finishing things I start. But I'm feeling like a chump. I really am. And when I was over there, the meeting was at the library, and I saw those 4 people from the Police Accountability Board chattering away about all sorts of stuff. And I'm thinking, I was just told at one of our meetings, if I hadn't have pushed back, we all would have been like, okay, we won't participate then because we don't want more than 2 of us in one. And so it's a bit of a whine, but I'm also kind of making some observations. I would like, one of the things that's taken up a lot of time is we're asked to make Cora requests and specific motions to get information from the people that are supposed to be, I thought, facilitating us getting information from the city so that we could keep things moving. It took a couple meetings, but I figured out, oh, wait a minute, they're not actually going to get the stuff unless I make a motion. Us just going, can we get this information? They're going to go, oh, yes, you could get that information. But until we make a motion, they're not actually going to give it to us. And, I'm thinking to myself, silly me, I'm a proceduralist. And everything like that in my profession is it has to be formally requested. That you kind of left that out of the introductory part of it. We heard about the city manager's very large budget to facilitate anything. You didn't have to ask permission if it was under X number of very large dollars. And then I think when Jessica was trying to get the recording stuff going, it was like, oh, it's way too expensive. So there's just been a lot of double messaging, or maybe it started out like you guys were like, yeah, we're going to work with them. And then like the big memo or one of these texts came out being like, don't be helping those people because they're getting way too close to a live wire. I don't know what it was, but what this is that we're really following the rules. We don't talk to each other. We don't text. We don't go into dark rooms and have meetings, just 3 or 4 or 5 of us. We follow the rules. And I'm really trying to figure out if this is even a serious venture, because, you told Jessica to make a Cora request for something that you could just give her as part of this commission. I don't get it. Like we have to, okay. And then the Cora request will come sometime after these other reports that keep getting staggered along. And I'm kind of trying to figure out, do the same rules apply to everyone? Because I know that the Police Accountability Board apparently gets to meet in whatever number they want to, whenever they want to, and talk about stuff. And they're lifers. They've been on that board for a long time. They've been through like 3 different police chiefs and blah, blah, blah. And they all know each other's dog names. But they get so much room to operate that we don't have. And I can't figure out why that is. I was literally like flabbergasted when I saw that. So I think one thing that would help, and I am following out on Mr. Macero's comments and Gary's, because what people do in this government, how they operate, though the language is very broad in the ordinance. I mean, I said to Don Overcash, are you sure you want this language? Because you can drive a truck through it. And he said, oh, yes, it's what we want you to. And I was like, all right, you've seen my resume, right? So that's my comment. I would like to know, what are our operating rules? And are our operating rules the same as city councils and as the other commissions?
Thank you. Would either of you guys like to respond to that?
Commissioner Walsh, as you noted, we always take the absolute highest road as attorneys. That's our obligation. And when you ask me for advice, my advice is consistent no matter what board I'm talking to, whether it's city council, whether I'm giving advice to Greeley under an IGA, where they're operating under a civil service commission. Any board, we have the exact same training. What you heard me give you on those opening days in terms of your ethical obligations and your obligations to always be the best you can be to build trust in the community. That's what we give to everybody. Now, if there are commissioners who don't follow it, we probably need to know about it. If there are members who aren't following it, we probably need to know about it and take a look into it. But we expect everyone to abide by the same rules, and I'm not giving you tougher rules. But I'm here and I know what you expect, and I want to provide you as much information as you can so that you can operate effectively. It's true that this is a very procedural board, that when you say, can I get that report? We're waiting for the body to say, that's a good decision, and then we will follow it.
And we're required to go through Cora?
No, you're required to go through your board, the commission.
You told Jessica to get a report through Cora.
She could
it was-
individually receive that if she wanted to, or this board could make a request if they wanted it. I thought I gave both options, and I meant to do that.
I don't think she understood it that way. So do you hold the city council to, is it the same? Because people are telling you that the city council members aren't following the rules.
The standards I provide do not change.
If I could,
Commissioner Scholl.
as a fellow proceduralist, I'd like to respond, and I will say, one is kind of with a suggestion, and I think the first part of the ordinance specifically references the Karen Garner case in the police department. And what I'd like to do, I think, as a board or suggest is let's wrap that up. And I do think, I think you, within your comment, Commissioner Walsh, you brought up a couple of good points, and I think that were reflected in the Jensen Hughes report, one of which is some thinking of how the police advisory board has operated and changes that can be made to better reflect kind of policing and community trust. I think that was one of the things that was included in there that I think is worth our time to explore as a pillar of the community trust for some of the reasons you brought up in your comment. I would like to hear from the city manager. As we've heard from the police department, we've heard from everyone, but you look at the chart and the city manager's at the top of that pyramid, and we haven't had a chance to sit down and kind of get his perspective, which is what I would like to do before we kind of wrap that part of it up. And there are other things as well. I don't mean to just, but I do think, and if there's other documents or information, I think we should make a motion, or if there's some things that we don't feel like we have, and get the information so we can start to build those recommendations. And as part of that, so that perhaps I think then we could start to look at kind of other elements. I will say, and to kind of move off and to kind of discuss some of the things that had come up earlier with email and text. I worked for the city for 11 years. I mean, just for full, I mean, I think a lot of people know that I was part of a lot of really big public projects. That, the Sprouts grocery store, which was, we got sued over that, the Foundry, the expansion of the Rialto Theater, I mean, just to name a few. And to some extent, when you're doing that, I bring that up because I think when you're managing $170 million operation, your communication is going to occur between staff and I think between city. When I was on staff, I had every member of city council on my phone, my phone, and I probably still have most of them on both sides of the aisle. So I think that, and I think, having those communications, I think, is important. It's not possible or realistic to have every conversation in public in front of someone and effectively, efficiently manage a bureaucracy that large. And I want to finish with that because I understand your perspective. I do think there are, and I don't want to excuse some of the text messaging, because I do think within that, there are things that are troubling that I find troubling, just for the record. But I do think when we start to throw around terms like corruption and the behavior and some of these things and use these terms, it really bothers me, because they were thrown at me when I was a city staff person pretty regularly. And I was corrupt. I was in either the pocket of someone, or I was a lackey. I was stupid. I should be fired. I mean, you name it, and I have kids that are in school here. I have, I live here. I'm part of the community. I'm committed, just as Commissioner Vick said. I mean, I had grow up here, but I'm committed to being part of this community. And so I think I want to take a little bit more of a nuanced look at some of these things and understand it within the context of managing a big government bureaucracy and how you do that, and what's appropriate and what's not, and what rises to the level of corruption and what doesn't. Because I will say that both sides are guilty and really doing some really not nice things in this community. And I think that we throw out these terms and these accusations that, all the time I see it, and that's, on Facebook and on social media, and it's, and everyone is, they're seeking to destroy the community. And we feel like we can say that because we have the moral high ground, because our position is pure and theirs isn't. And I think we don't really have the capacity sometimes to reflect and say, no, we need to just be better collectively. It's not them. Sometimes it's us as well. And so I'll leave it at that. I understand that there are, again, I'm not Pollyannish about it. There are things that trouble me about that communication that I think we are worthy of looking into and having a bigger discussion. But I think when people start throwing out those terms and not kind of appreciating other things, that's where you lose me really quick. So I'll leave it at that.
Sure thing. So I'm just going to transition this real quick. You have to be like lightning fast.
I think that the point of people raising the council issue was for that discussion.
Sure.
I don't know that there are sides. I haven't quite heard in this group the word corruption. I don't know what the other side, I don't know what you mean by.
I think he's referring more to like the citizens' comments about it and things like that, because they were pretty strong worded about it.
So I think the point of Mr. Massaro raising this was for the type of conversation. I understand the defensiveness that you feel. Just like, I was like, my heart broke for Shane. It's like, I understand when it's so frustrating in that way, but the point is to have a conversation. And whether we're going to have a conversation about it, whether we're man enough as a group to have a conversation about it. And the underlying part of that is we have to be fair and we have to know what it is. I'm looking at regulations on council and going like, oh, it's pretty violating, and so what are those? We have to have those conversations.
I agree. And I am going to, just because I see that we're starting to run low on time and I would like to get towards the end of the agenda. But I do think that that's something, like Commissioner Scholl said, it's something that's worthy of discussion. If it's something that we end up looking into, it might just be a situation where they are just talking about dogs, whatever. I don't think that anybody deserves to be dismissed from a position for something like that. But we might find that it's more. So, but I do want to move on to the recommendations part. I don't think that based off of the discussions that we had that there are necessarily new recommendations, but I did write down some items about what we had talked about. And actually, my last item I'm gonna talk about first. So Commissioner Scholl had mentioned us, potentially wrapping up our outlook on the Karen Garner case. And so I think that is something that we as a group need to discuss, because that kind of is our direction moving forward of, if we do close that out, what do we want to do? What does that look like? And I do know that he had mentioned also interviewing the city manager and city attorney, I do believe. Let me know if I'm paraphrasing wrongly here, but interviewing them as well to kind of finish up that process.
We also had the risk management and the HR on the list. Those have been on the list for a long time.
Okay, so
So key.
I know it's just not enough time.
And we don't, then we fold.
Mhm.
If we don't
Do it all correct.
and we don't have any information.
Correct. So, I'm open to discussion for it. I'm just kind of curious what everyone else's outlook is on it. Commissioner Big?
It works. I'm going to side a little bit with Commissioner Scholl, that it's time to wrap this up. And I understand the human resources side of it as well, because obviously being a public servant, when things go wrong, they go really, really wrong. There's a lot of things that happen there, but we have defined what our 8 pillars of trust are. I think we've heard a lot of stuff, the blue team report, that kind of stuff, how that's still officer initiated, those kind of things. And I'll say this, lightning quick. 2 police officers who aren't police officers anymore did a horrible, awful thing to one of our community members, which we all feel horrible for. If it was the 1800s, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be alive today, right? So what we need to do, in my opinion, is to wrap this up, is we push this through the 8 pillars of trust. Where did they break the trust? Why did they break the trust? I think we all pretty much know why they broke the trust, all that kind of stuff. And we say, okay, here's how you fix it. Now, here's the interesting pieces to this. There's an IA report out there we're not going to see for a while, which, okay, I'm just like I said, speaking from my opinion. The Jensen and Hughes, how many people, who had the report? How many people participated in the Jensen and Hughes out of 80,000? 84, 86?
Maybe 100 if you're lucky.
Maybe 100? Because even on the poll that one of the other commissioners brought up, which I really appreciate, said there was 234 out of 80,000. That's less than 1% of the population chimed in on something. So to bring it full circle, like I said, I think we just need to wrap it up and say, hey, here's where the trust was obviously violated. How do we rebuild it? Second of all, I think it's glaring, in my opinion, of some of the stuff that from the city council, right? Not that specific things, but we need to just move on.
And I think that we have the ability to close out our work on the Karen Garner stuff without having to interview the city manager. We can do that just to do that. I don't think we have to apply that to a specific case. We're going to go Catherine Barrett, and then we'll go with you, Gary.
Respectfully disagree, Chair Pryor. I don't see how we wrap this up without the internal affairs investigation report, and without having an interview with City Manager Adams, because it wasn't 2 people out of the entire department who failed. There was failure across the entire chain for the way things were supposed to work, as has been outlined. And I think that we still need to have very specific questions answered as soon as we're able to ask the right questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreith?
Yes, I'm in agreement that we need to wrap this up. Mainly, we keep asking for documents. We got wheelbarrows of documents. There was a thing on the agenda tonight. Someone's going to motion for some additional documents. I think I have to look at it from the scientific aspect. Do we have a hypothesis? Do we have a recommendation that we're trying to focus onto? It doesn't do any good to gather documents from all over the world unless we're focusing in on one paragraph of a recommendation. So unless somebody has that, which nobody's presented a recommendation here yet that we're working towards, we need to just get, the Jensen Hughes is out there. They're already working on corrective action. There's not much more that we can do from that aspect that we haven't already got. So we need to, unless somebody has a recommendation in mind that they want, that we need to talk to HR or we need to talk to somebody else to narrow that down. I don't think that we need to go any further there unless we've got the specific end point.
Ooh, we've got a lot of hands up. So we're going to go Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Schnell, Commissioner Schneider. All right, I'll write down the names. We'll start off with those three. Merlin, I do see your hand up as well, just so you know. But Commissioner Ward, whenever you're ready.
This is Commissioner Ward, and the one question that I've wanted answered since the beginning of our commission that I'm guessing we won't know the answer to until the IA report is out. But my big question is, when did the upper levels of police management and city management know about the Karen Garner incident? Who knew what when? And when those questions are answered, then I think we have our answer. But we haven't specifically asked that question. I mean, that's kind of hanging out there. But I don't know that we will know that until the IA report. I mean, we know what, we know what those guys did. We know what the officers did. We know what the sergeant did. We know what the community service officer did, the 4 people that were personally involved. But we won't know how high up the chain any of this information didn't get. Like, does that make sense? And that's the question I want answered. If somebody can tell me, well, they can prove that this person knew this, then we know where the breakdown happened. And then we can begin addressing in a system what needs to change. And that's all I've got.
Tara, sorry.
Kind of exactly what Commissioner Ward just said. But also, and this might not come out until the IA too. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. But also, I've been wondering if the officers were decertified, but I don't know if that doesn't happen until after the IA as well. I just know that I don't know if they resigned or if they were fired or like exactly what happened. But I think, so it is hard for me to feel like we can close it out without the IA report, because I feel like a lot of the big questions will be answered.
My list. Thank you, Tara.
And the big thing was I did recommend something for Ray Mendoza, specifically from this, and I was super disappointed about how it was delivered. But I totally understand, because I would not have been able to deliver anything. But she's still, oh, they do have a policy. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure that we don't just let that like fall away with how it was presented, because I wanted, at least we can at least say it and the community hears us say it. And I think that's something. So.
I agree. Commissioner Schneider.
Yeah, I want to echo what both commissioners just said. I want to ask potentially another dumb question. What is the delay on the internal affairs Jensen and Hughes report? And why could we as a commission not request that right now? So that's, I guess, my first question.
I believe it just hasn't been released yet. That's correct, right? It's been released? Oh, okay. But it hasn't been released to the public though, correct? Okay.
I'm sorry, can you clarify what you're hearing?
Better explain, please. Thank you.
So Moses is going to make me answer a question. So as we've talked about before, you all have asked about the IA. And so the comment there was that the IA, and there's judicial laws that pertain to its release, was there. It has been completed to the point that it's done. And under that, protections is offered not only to the people that have worked on either side of that issue, is to make sure that it's released at the proper time if there are still proceedings underway or going through the process. And so we are told that we have to wait for those things to clear. We are in the middle of clearing a step in that process. And until that's done, we are not able to release the document because that's what the state says is releasing these documents for. So we were asked when we thought that it would occur. And since we're not in charge of that particular process right now, we had offered a date of March. I'm not sure if we have an update to that, but that's when we're hoping to be able to release it.
Is it not possible, thank you, Manager Adams, is it not possible to get a release of the report with some things redacted if needed, if that's the actual legal line that we're up against? Because, again, many commissioners have said we're putting a lot of time and energy into this, and we really want to do a good job. And we really need information to do a good job. For myself, I would love for us to be able to see the internal affairs report. If redactions are legally necessary, understandable. But I think, we were appointed to do something, and we all want to do something if we're here. And then I think we would like to follow up with you, with the interview that we all approved several meetings ago. So I'm not trying to be pushy here, but I really think we need to get to the nut of some of this work. Thank you.
So thank you again for that impassioned plea that you've given us before. And the same answer is it's not going to be redacted. It will be released. Whether there's redaction in it or not, I'm not sure. But the point there is it's not a point to release to anyone. And I need to say that the Trust Commission has no special status as far as the release of this document. Neither does our city council, who would love to see it. So do the community would love to see it. We would all like to share it with them, but we are in this process where we're not able to do that at this time.
Just hold on just one second, just because we're running low on time. I just want to just go ahead and get this out of the way. I move that we extend the meeting 30 minutes.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I don't believe that passes. I believe that is 7. Those who are opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, so there were some hands that came up late. Okay, so let's just do a recount. Those of you who want to extend the meeting, please raise your hand proudly. Thank you. 1, 2. Okay, and then those of you who oppose, please raise your hand just so we can get those. Thank you. All right, so majority vote.
Councilmember Pryor, I just
Yes.
want to remind you that under the rules, it requires 2/3.
2/3. We only had,
Do not vote, it's still a no.
we only had 3 no votes though.
All of the total votes of everyone present, if you didn't vote, it's still a no. So everyone must vote, and if you don't vote, you're still counted as a no.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, we had 3
Hey,
no.
I'm sorry. Why is the city council rule that they're counted as a yes if they don't vote?
So regardless, we had 3 no votes. Everyone the second go around did vote. That is a part of 2/3. So we will extend the meeting until 9. Yes. What was that? We are extending it, yes, until 9. Thank you. Okay, now Commissioner Walsh.
Rather than say you're pursuant to what judicial provision is the IA report being withheld? What process is ongoing? Instead of, I'm serious, it's a serious question, not joking around now.
No, I understand your question. And
I misunderstood your
I am
smile.
turning it over to our city attorney to provide to you the legal information to your request.
So under SB 217, with the new releases of IAs, one of the pieces in that is that the reports are not subject to release until the internal affairs investigation is complete. The internal affairs investigation is not complete until all of the appeals associated with it are done. The reason it's important, and I know from your perspective, you want to see that report, but there is a person on the other side whose due process is all dependent on the fact that there are not conclusions made that taint that person's right in front of a court. And so we won't release it because we want to protect those due process rights.
Thank you. The reason why I asked this question is this is the type of communication that needs to happen, not this passive voice, we can't give it to you, et cetera. There is a reason. These are grown-ups. We're, if we can talk about the reason for things instead of just, no, you can't have it, it's going to be received better. We're going to be educated. We're going to understand it better. Following up on that, there are appeals. Are you making a statement that there are appeals pending right now?
That's correct. And we're expecting resolution of the appeals by late March.
And what is the, in what venue is it? Is it a commission? Is it the court? Where is it?
It is in the district court.
Okay, and is it the officers Hop and Jalali, whatever her name is?
It is not.
Who appealed?
I don't remember the name of the officer off the top of my head.
So just one of them appealed? And is it all in one report?
It is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Really quickly.
And then Commissioner Thompson has been waiting very patiently, so we're going to let him go.
Yep, this is Commissioner Ward. And then Mr. Garcia, who is the person that then says this can be released?
Then it would come to the city attorney's office, and the city attorney's office would approve the release based on all of the appeals being completed.
Okay, so it's your office then. Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Thompson.
Okay, I guess I'd just like to make a comment on, everybody's making their comments, and the Karen Gardner case is very bad, and we all know that, and we're not going to fix it. But what we were supposed to do was to try and create trust in the community. And I don't think us, wanting this, wanting that, needing these documents, needing to have this, it isn't going to make any difference of trust in the community. So I think it's time to move on. And I think we need to move to trying to build trust and not trying to take the police department down or whatever some people think we're going to do. That wasn't our job. It was never intended to be. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Barrett, and then Commissioner Bullard.
Thank you so much. I agree with Commissioner Thompson that we can't fix the city council. You made a comment earlier about that, and that's not our job. But there is a public perception that I think our job is to make sure that city council is aware of that perception so that they can, so we can make recommendations, or they can come up with ways to address that perception problem. And so I would like, as far as, developing new recommendations, I would like to do two things. I'd like to see if we can please schedule City Manager Adams for next session's meeting, as well as that, was it PIO, the person who helps us to coordinate town halls and surveys? If we could do that, and then the third one would be to, I'm sorry, no, that's about it. That's all I have for now.
So are you making a motion for us to do that our next meeting?
If that's all right, as far as a recommendation for moving forward to have, so that we can finish this up.
Mhm.
So that we can finish this up. Let's have that meeting with City Manager Adams, and if it was PIO, and I'm sorry if I'm getting the acronym wrong.
You're fine. I
Have to
believe
have them at the
Commissioner
next
Scholl has a follow-up question.
I just suggest, I know part of the agenda is to have a discussion about the agenda. And I think I just want to say if we can have that discussion at that time about making a motion for the invitation, because I wanted, it's already
moved and fixed.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're just talking about making it for specifically next meeting. I think is what she's getting at.
And the other thing I wanted to just suggest that I'd like to, so we can formalize it, have a motion if we need to, or to ensure that we have access to the IA report as soon as it's publicly available, and move that it be provided to the commission once it's released publicly. Because I do think, to my earlier point, if we're going to wrap up the Karen Garner piece, I think getting some comment, some opportunity to have a discussion with the city manager, I think is important. So, but I don't want to let.
I second.
Okay, so just so I can clarify the motion, the motion is that the day that the IA report is available, we receive it.
It'd be provided to the Community Trust Commission upon public release.
Perfect. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add or change to that motion before we vote on it? Yes, Commissioner Vick.
Just to throw this out there, obviously we're all 16 of us sound like we're on the agreement with the IA report.
Mhm.
Is it possible with this motion to table this whole thing until that's released so we can work on other things?
Yes.
So if we table the whole Karen Garner, what we're doing with the LPD, table this whole discussion, this whole thing until for his motion, that once that IA's report, then we as a commission can go back to it. While in the meantime, because it could be March, April, then we go back. Now we can focus on city council stuff. We can maybe work on a few other things.
Okay.
That's my discussion.
I see what you're saying now. I was a little confused at first. So you're basically wanting to amend the motion that once, not only are we voting on for, to receive the IA report as soon as it's publicly available, but we also table the Karen Garner stuff until that IA report is out.
Because it seems to be the crux of everything we're doing. So
yeah,
I believe Commissioner Barrett has her hand.
Commissioner Barrett, yes.
I just have a question about that, and this may need to go to the city manager. If there is another appeal, does it get pushed out further than April? We're looking at the end of March now.
It's done.
Can it keep getting pushed out and pushed out?
Would could there be another appeal to extend it further?
I understand there's only one appeal that's left, and it is this one that's currently happening.
And there can't be another one added on it?
Well, I'm not going to promise that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case.
Okay.
Is there a deadline for appeals?
Once it is in front of a judge, the judge will decide when the judge wants to hear it. So there's no deadline.
Commissioner Black.
Thank you. I disagree as far as just tabling LPD altogether. They have set up 5 assessment groups, and that's in direct correlation to the Jensen Hughes report, which they didn't do the internal investigation on the Karen Gardner. This was just their report on the LPD and its relationship with the community. So I absolutely feel like we can still work on that while we're waiting for the Karen Gardner report. And sure, there'll be something that comes out of that we can work on, but I still think we should focus on those 5 focus areas. And the community perspective section of the Jensen Hughes report, which was in the very front part of the report. It isn't part of the 5 focus areas that LPD set up. And I think we can focus on that and try to get more trust building, relationship building between the community and LPD in the interim of waiting for that IA investigation. And one of those could be survey, and another could be town hall / open community roundtable discussion. I think we can set that up in the interim. But I wouldn't just lay down. I personally want to lay down working with the LPD and their focus groups.
I risk of cutting.
That's what 90% of these people are there for.
I do want to point out to the chairman, we do have a motion, a second on the floor. And are we is the discussion about tabling the current, because I think perhaps that may be a separate discussion, and if we could maybe just vote.
Do just the IA first, and then we can do the
And
other
have
part.
that discussion about how we want to address that. That would be my suggestion, but again.
Yeah, Commissioner Vic, you were the one who originally added in that amended piece. Are you okay if we continue with the motion without the amended piece and just focus on the IA report? We can talk about Karen Garner after.
Yeah, just so I understand that, it's that when the IA report's released, we get it as soon as we possibly can, right? That was the motion that was.
Correct, yes.
I'm okay with that. I just, like I said, it's.
Yeah. Okay, so the current motion that we have on the table is that once the IA report is publicly available, that it is, sent and received by the Community Trust Commission. And we have a second for that. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. All right, the motion passes. Okay. Now, to get back to your point about the Karen Garner stuff, I do think that there's a bit of a disconnect as far as what you guys are talking about. You're not saying that we just completely stop looking at LPD. We just stop looking at the Karen Garner case, correct?
Let me clarify, Mike.
Yeah.
If we table our, like, the question, yes, Commissioner Ward's final question is all of our question. How in the world could so many people potentially cover this up, right? That's what we're trying to get down to. If our job, not our job, I have no idea. What I'm saying is we should table that until that IA report comes out, because anybody we interview after that, we now have facts in front of us. It makes their question and answer period factual, not, well, I can't answer that right now. I can't talk about that right now. It opens up doors and avenues of discussions we can have back and forth with people, because we now have a document that they can talk about. Prior to releasing that document, as Moses has said, they're going to take the high road. They have to. They're not going to be able to talk about it. So I say we wait till it comes out and do like what Commissioner Black's talking about. We can still have open forums and community meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I thought was going on.
That. Thank you. I thought, let's start building the trust. Let's do it.
No. Okay, cool. Now that we're on the same page about that, because to Commissioner Black's point, I do think that, we all get involved with these various assessment groups, and we can have, one person from each group do some sort of like a 10-minute report of, hey, this is what we worked on in this group, and then kind of coming together, figuring some stuff out. Yes, Natalie.
No, I find that very duplicative. The police department is doing that. Citizens are participating in this police department activity. It's not ours to take away from the police department. And I just find that redundant.
Mhm.
I understand, that it dovetails in, but the police accountability people are going to be super upset because they already feel like we're usurping their, what they're doing.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of is too overlapping without, and it's just the wrong forum for it. Mirroring the 5 things that the police department is.
I'm not saying mirror what they're doing, like not us making recommendations here. Just I didn't go to the groups. I don't know if you all, like all 5 groups are in the same room or if y'all split off into different rooms. But I was just thinking, just giving an update, just so we're all on the same page of like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing for this particular area. Is kind of more what I was getting at.
Okay, but I'm just, to tell you the truth, Monday night, and so I've met 2 Wednesdays in a row.
Mhm.
So that's Monday night and then Wednesday night, and I'm like doing the same thing twice. I'll just pick which one I'll participate in. I don't think I'll do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Commissioner Black.
Well, and I just want to clarify, LPD did not open this invitation up to the community at large. That is not what they have done. We were invited, the citizens that sit on this commission, and obviously the citizens that serve on PCAB were invited, but there were no other at-large community members invited. And one of the biggest things with 21st century policing is community involvement in all your procedures, all your policies, all your community engagement plans, all your training. That's the crux.
Right.
And so I kind of felt like, well, if we're the only citizens being invited, we should try to be there to have our citizen hat on to help them formulate these next steps, these next plans. And because there are no other citizens invited to those working groups.
Well, maybe Jordan doesn't understand what is happening at these meetings. So they're formulating the policies and procedures. And I don't know, I mean, I'll give the minutes, I mean, if that helps, but I mean, they're formulating, it's not the outreach portion of it. I think our participation in it, I got the sense that my guy reached farther than that, but I might have misheard him, than just these two commissions. But the process is they're making, we're discussing the policy and procedure, like, well, what's it called?
So if you're okay with it, I'm going to interject real quick, just because I know that we do not want to extend until 9:30. And I know a lot of folks have their hands raised. Catherine Bullard, I do know you are the next person I will have speak here momentarily. Something that we do need to figure out, though, is if we are to table our efforts with Karen Garner, and we're not going to just do constant, reports on these assessment groups, what are we going to do to fill that time, essentially? Okay.
Whoever.
Yeah, we'll go you first and then Tara afterwards.
So then. We need
Catherine, hold on. Catherine, is it about the actual Karen Garner stuff? Is that what you had raised your hand for? You're on mute.
I think you all have been talking back and forth and without chatting, and that's been a little disturbing. I'm willing to wait until this part of the decision is done.
Okay, thank you.
So then I move that we next meet with the PIO person so that we can survey and figure out our next steps. If we're going to kind of pause on the Karen Gardner, then we can get more public comment and figure out what we do next, right? Otherwise, we're just going to keep going in circles.
I'll second that.
Oh,
yes, Tara.
So the whole reason I got on this commission and wanted to be on this commission is I'm part of the Hispanic community, and I have been for 51 years. And everybody refers to the Karen Garner incident as if it's one incident, and it isn't. And it happens all the time. And the joking that we saw on the video happens all the time. And that's why I'm on here. I was innocent when I dealt with the police. And that joking went on all the time. They came into my place of business and high-fived each other over the incident while I was sitting in my wheelchair and a neck brace. And I tried to talk to the city. I tried to talk to the police, and there was zero avenue for me to talk to them. I was shut down. They made jokes at me at their holiday parties. They joked about how my kids weren't really even hurt, even though my daughter now has to go back into hip surgery. It's her 4th surgery, and her hip is deteriorating. So I'm on this commission because it's not one incident, and I don't even look Hispanic. So my family that do, one of them pretends to be African-American because he's treated better, perceived as Black, than perceived as Hispanic. So there is a big issue in this community. And by tabling it all, I feel like it's exactly how we treat this community in this, how we've always treated them. Be quiet, don't act Hispanic, and you'll get along just fine in this community. So that's why I'm on this commission. And I don't know, I just want it, it's not one incident for many of the people in this community. And it might only be 12% of us, but that's a big portion of 80,000 people. So anyways, I just want to keep that in mind as we're like acting as if this is one incident.
So I agree with you. And that's why I think that we should have some more town halls and things where we can get these real life stories to us so that we can help get them out into the world, right? Like, where's the trust lacking? Who in the community sees, like, we saw Shane has a different opinion, not opinion, but he was at an incident and he had a different perspective than the people who were involved, than the neighbors next door. And having everybody be able to go to the same room and have some town halls where we can all speak and listen, that's going to be our way to be able to hear these things and make recommendations. So we have to be able to do the surveys. And I think that's really what we need to be doing, is getting information from the public so that we can build trust back to the public, right? So I motion that we request the PIO officer, or not officer, PIO person from the city to be our next.
May I amend that motion, please?
Yes, Commissioner Barrett.
Because I agree completely. I would also like to ask that City Manager Adams also be on the March 7th meeting. May we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Schneider.
Hold on, Catherine, can you say that, or Commissioner Barrett, will you say that one more time? I couldn't quite hear the tail end of that.
Sure. I support the PIO being at the March 7th meeting, but I would also like to add that City Manager Adams be interviewed at that meeting as well, if it's convenient for him. May I have a second? Jessica Schneider, Commissioner Schneider seconded.
Second. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't oppose that. I just, one of the things that was brought up was, and it's, I think is kind of Commissioner Vick's motion about tabling, and or that idea was, having the city manager kind of come and talk to us at the next meeting. I would just like kind of want to have an understanding of what you can and can't say, because I think if they're kind of liberated from the need for discretion due to the appeal and judicial process, then I think we can have a little bit more of a candid conversation. And I think we can ask a little bit more pointed and direct questions. So I don't oppose it, but I would like to at least have a discussion about whether or not, we wait to have that conversation until after it's publicly available, or if, because I just, again, is the proceduralist wing of the commission, being sensitive to that and making sure that we take our time and do it correctly, I think is important to me. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Schneider.
Commissioner Scholl, please. This is Commissioner Schneider.
Yes.
Commissioner Scholl, I appreciate what you're saying there. Unfortunately, we don't have time to take our time. We don't. We've already passed a motion to interview Manager Adams several weeks ago, maybe more than a month ago. This could be delayed, as Attorney Garcia said. We don't know. This is our opportunity to ask some good questions. And hopefully, after the IA report is released, we can ask City Manager to come back and talk to us again. I hope you would be amenable to that. So I'd like to think that we're all working towards the same goal.
Yeah. Okay. So I think our best course of action is to do this. We'll vote on both the PIO as well as the city manager to come in and come speak to us for the next meeting, but we'll do them separately in case there are some people who, hold on one second. Yes. Correct. Yes, a request for them to come in, yes. But then that way, if some people want the PIO person, but not Manager Adams or vice versa, it doesn't matter. It doesn't muddle the vote. So we'll start from scratch. I I motion that we invite Manager Adams to our next meeting on March 7th, correct? That's the March 7th? Yeah, okay.
Excuse me, I need to make a point of motion here. Point of order, I mean. I'm making a point of order, not a motion. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I thought we had a motion already from that, and now you're making a third motion?
No, I'm trying to reiterate what we've talked about.
But you said you were making a motion. For you to make a motion, we have to have a retraction up here and a retraction here, I believe, for point of order.
Then I am moving to amend the motion. Commissioner Scholl, did you have a comment?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I am amending our motion to 2. Thank you. And the first amended motion is that we invite City Manager Steve Adams to our March 7th meeting for questions. Second, okay. All those in favor, please raise, well, hold on. Is there anything else before we vote on that?
Discussion.
Yes, Natalie.
My question is whether that addresses, is that what Tara was, Commissioner Hildebrand was going towards? Does that address the issue you raised?
Yeah,
Yes, I just want to make sure that we don't address community concerns about the LPD in general.
Okay, and then yes, Commissioner Ward.
And this is Commissioner Ward. I just am concerned that if we have City Manager Adams in prior to the IA release, that we're going to ask questions that he won't answer, which is worse from a trust standpoint, because then it looks like he's just dodging. So that's my concern about having him come before we get the IA.
Okay, well, I think that would be something that I would reflect in your vote, I would assume, right? Okay, sorry, okay, perfect. All right, one last time. What we're voting on is that we request that March 7th, we bring in City Manager Steve Adams in for questions. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, all those opposed, please raise your hand.
Okay, I misunderstood. That's why I was asking Tara if that addressed her question. That's why I asked it. So I changed my vote.
Well, it didn't pass, so regardless, I think we'll be all right. Okay, now the other half of that amended motion is we request that the PIO personnel with the City of Loveland come in March 7th to answer questions. I would need a yes.
Yeah, help us.
Discussion on that real quick.
No.
I thought we were just interviewing. Isn't that what you wanted, was just the PIO?
So I move, do it again, that the PIO come and help us figure out how we're doing town halls and how we get more community surveys done. Yeah.
Okay, and then Commissioner Drive.
Yes, it's my understanding that PIO is the police information officer, or is it the public information officer?
It's public.
Yes, respond to that.
Very quickly, yes.
So the police have a PIO and the city has one. And my recommendation is to have the city one, Nicole Yost, who's a trained professional in this particular area, come and talk to you all.
Okay.
I think you get a lot from her conversation.
Perfect. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, thank you. I'm supportive of it, and I'm supportive to Commissioner Steiner's of having the city manager come and talk. I think it's important. It's just a timing question for me. But I want to just kind of think about what the ask is to the PIO a little bit, because I want to understand, because I know there's a commissioner brought up the Center for Public, and there's a group out of CSU that does some public engagement, which sounded interesting. I'd like to talk about how we can use the city's platform, not Facebook, but the city's platform to maybe look at some engagement. And so I just want to, I mean, as long as I think as a commission, we understand it's not just her coming to talk to us. I think we have to be prepared to kind of be directive to some degree within the framework of our commission. So I just make that point.
Yes, Commissioner Black.
Thank you. I think we know what we want. We've had city council support, at least some members support town halls. And we've had the city offer to help us set those engagements up. And so we need their help. And so I think bringing that individual here, we can say, we want 1 or 2 set up. We want to make sure that there's language justice so that all Spanish speaking individuals are also welcome. Kind of parameters as far as that goes. Where are we having it? What's the venue? But I think we can, and then we can also have the discussion about a survey that the city can send out for us with that individual. And I think they would give us great recommendations on how that's going to be set up and how it can be accessed by the community. I think we're all set to meet with them. I think we know exactly what we want and what the ask is.
Well, I always caution to speak using the term we and because I think because I'm not sure that we always do. I mean, I'm not sure.
I see you, Commissioner Bullard. I see you.
But I'm not opposed, and I just want to be clear that we're managing our expectations about what the city can do and what the information we're going to get back from the community engagement. I think I've been and have had to do it, and as Commissioner Vick pointed out, even with the police, I mean, it's really hard to get good community engagement over a broad swath of the population of our residents without being very active and expensive and time and staff time. So I just want to be a little clear. We are and point out that we are governed by the language of the ordinance, not necessarily by public opinion. I mean, I don't want to diminish that, but I think we are governed by what's written in that ordinance. And so, I just think that it's important, that we stay focused on what it is we're going to do. And I think hopefully public can inform it, but I don't want that to be kind of an end in of itself. And so I don't know if that made sense, but I'll stop.
Commissioner Bullard. I know. We'll let Commissioner Bullard speak, and then we'll do the vote after that. If that's somewhat okay with everyone. We've got 3 minutes left. So Commissioner Bullard.
Okay, what I was going to say is it's time to stop talking and have the vote. And then
I like it. Okay, so just to reiterate, it is to bring in the city's PIO to talk about town halls and the logistics of all of that and community engagement. So we had a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. And the motion passes. Excellent. Okay, it is.
Another motion seconded. It was a very simple. It was the simplest of them all.
Which one?
Please give us the report when it's publicly available.
That passed. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, you guys, it is what, 8:58. I'm going to go ahead and just tell everyone, please go home.
I'm sorry, but
your spouses, say hello to your kids.